Hi, Tom Kofer with OnPoint Consulting here. Today we are very excited to be sharing these individual recording learning sessions from our highly successful and free, I might add, OnPoint Sage 300 CRE web conference attended by Sage 300 users from all over the country. We had 10 great web learning sessions over a 2-day period that were extremely well attended, and also wanted to pass those on to you as part of our continuing commitment to Sage 300, and also to those of you that might have missed the sessions. This session that I'm introducing is Beginning Crystal Reports Best Practices, and the goal and learning objectives are how to modify an existing Crystal Report design, also how to access the Sage 300 Data Dictionary, and setting up ODBC in conjunction with Crystal so that we're successful. You know, we were able to deliver this successful webinar series because of our deep pool of very experienced senior Sage 300 CRE consultants, the trainers, our software developers, customer report developers, and alliances with key partners in the industry. And in addition to the support and training and consulting services we bring to the table, we also provide Sage 300 customers with an optimization and business process review service that's really determined to help us determine if Sage can really be enhanced and the life of it extended, which is our first goal, or if it in fact should be replaced. You know, we've helped hundreds of Sage 300 users over our past 30-year history, and are here to help you gain the maximum of your software and extend the life of your investment. We're grateful for your support in the past, and we're here to help today and in the future. And if you find this recorded webinar or others that we're providing helpful, then please share us or like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can find us at onpoint-software.com. We thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the session with our compliments, and stay well, friends.
So hey everybody, and thanks for being here late on a Friday like this. So yes, this is Beginning Crystal Reports, and we'll get right to it. We've got an hour here. All right, in terms of the objectives for today, we're going to go through ODBC. I know Mike Savecki, he's a rock star, man, and he went through that in quite a bit of detail. So we'll do what we need to there. We'll talk about accessing the Sage 300 Data Dictionary. We will cover modifying existing report designs. It's important you know how to be able to make changes, especially today, and we'll add then that modified report to the design menu, or to the report menu in Sage, and then talk a bit about upgrading reports. Sorry, I had to yell at my dog to quit making the noises that dogs make. Anyway, off we go. To ODBC. ODBC is an integral part. You have to have a certain level of knowledge if you are working on Crystal Reports. The extent we have to talk about it today is ODBC, Open Database Connectivity. It's a Microsoft standard, a little Microsoft program that installs with Windows. And all he really does, the only thing ODBC does, is he's a translator. He's a traffic cop between two programs that want to talk to each other. And that's his purpose. So that when you've got your Sage data, for instance, sitting in one spot, and then you've got a ODBC compliant piece of software like Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word or Microsoft Access, or in this case, Crystal Reports, and these other pieces of software want to talk to your Sage data, they have to go through an interpreter. And that's what ODBC is. It's an interpreter for when you send calls back to the database because you want to get something, and then the database sends it back to ODBC to be interpreted in the right language, so to speak, that in this case Crystal can understand, and that's the purpose of it. There's a we're going to pop over here. I'm going to jump over to 32-bit ODBC Administrator. Let's just go to Report Designer so I can get to a screen. I'm going to hit my Windows key, and I'm going to type in 32. So I just went to Start, and I'm typing in 32, simply so I can get to my Windows ODBC data sources. This is the 32-bit ODBC Administrator, and kind of burn into memory. It's got to be 32-bit. Your Sage 300 CRE system has got to talk to a 32-bit ODBC driver. It will not work on 64. Okay, and what we're doing here is we're going to modify the Timberline data source DSN. All right, this is a special DSN that was installed / created when you did the workstation install of your Timberline system, of your Sage 300 system. Okay, he's a real special little guy. He actually gets used over and over and over again when you're operating Sage. As you do different things, run different reports, Sage actually makes a virtual copy of him, and he's getting flipped all around, upside down, inside out, based on how different reports were designed and how billing formats run. So he's a very special part of your system. The reason I'm mentioning this is, there's a lot of frustration out there sometimes, and people go, why do I have to have full control of my local workstation, especially the IT gang out there? If there's any IT folks, it's kind of a mystery. Why do I have to have full control of the workstation, or why do the users? This is one of the reasons. This DSN has got to be, when the user's operating, they have to be able to make a virtual copy of this DSN, and we'll talk about more why that is in a little bit. All right. But anyway, what you're going to do then, and you'll have this video to go back through, and I've also got a slide with a picture of it. So I wouldn't bother to take notes right now, because you'll have those two resources. What you've got to do to modify your Crystal reports is you're going to have to, I'm going to double click him. You're going to have to modify him to hard code some of the changes that are made when that virtual copy is made as you're operating Sage. All right, now that's okay, because Sage can continue to flip them around as it needs to, but for your Crystal report development, you want some things hard coded. First thing is, you'll select your data folder. So wherever your Sage data is, you'll hit select folder, and this is going to look kind of familiar to you, right? When you launch Sage, if you are prompted, you're prompted for your company data, and you'll just point that data to the DSN, to the data source name. And then you go to options, and without going into a lot of detail here, standard descriptions, first box checked. That's all you have to remember. And again, you'll have a screenshot that's coming up in another slide or two that looks just like this. So step 1, map to your data. Step 2, standard descriptions. Step 3, first box checked. That's all you have to remember. Then you'll have a screenshot. And we go into a lot more detail about that in some of our classes, but in terms of what we have to know for today, and actually that's what you need permanently when you modify that DSN. Okay, so I've done my Timberline data source DSN modification so that I can get to my Crystal reports data and run that from within Crystal reports. That was the purpose of me making that modification. All right, so we got past that. Let me flip back over to the PowerPoint. I just wanted to get past that. I want to also mention the Sage integration formulas. There are some hard-coded, some formulas or some formula syntax throughout the built-in reports in Sage that tell the Crystal report design how to interact with Sage. So it tells it, for instance, where to find the company name, and it tells it maybe there's a TS ask function that says if you want to be asked for the new or the current or their history files on transaction-based reports. There are a variety of these integration formulas that when you start getting into the intermediate and advanced Crystal report design needs, you want to be aware that there are integration formulas, and they are in the user guide. All right, I'm gonna show those to you before the end of today. So just kind of burn that into memory, the fact that they exist, the Crystal integration formulas. Another thing, report speed and optimization. That's not part of beginning Crystal, and it's certainly not part of the 1 hour discussion today or presentation. However, report speed and optimization is and always will be a big issue. I get asked a lot, and we get asked a lot, why is ODBC so slow? The fact of the matter is ODBC isn't slow. It is old technology in terms of the driver we're dealing with and that we work with, but the ODBC is not slow. Is the report design optimized based on how you're pulling the data through to process as efficiently as you can, to keep server-side processing. In other words, keep the data on the server, not pull it through the workstation to your machine. Is the SQL written in such a way that the data processes with minimal overhead on your computer resources? And all of that's part of optimization. And I'm just bringing that up now because as you do get further along into Crystal report development, that's another consideration to be aware of. Is it in connection with ODBC? Yeah, kinda. It makes it more temperamental, but we've handled a lot of just monstrosity reports and optimized them to where they ran just fine. ODBC wasn't the problem. It was optimizing the design based on the data that we were working with. Just wanted to kind of make that clear. We set up, well, we modified the Timberline data source DSN. Mike Savecki mentioned this earlier. When you install Sage 300 CRE, if you were to install purchasing and inventory or install service management, which are our other modules, they have additional DSNs. So you would have the Timberline data source, and you'd also have a number of DSNs in connection with these modules. And so in perspective, if have I closed that guy? I have. I'll come back over and I'll pop open that 32-bit administrator. So if I had purchasing and inventory and service, I'd have a number of other data source names or DSNs here under user DSN or system that pointed. They basically just point to that PO data or point to the inventory data, and then they point to the accounting parts of that data. So they're like I say, you would expect a number of other DSNs there. Let's get back over to my, there you are. All right, briefly on the user guide. Oh, I don't have that open. I am gonna open that. So let's pop back open. I'm gonna go over Windows and Explorer. So forgive me, you're just gonna see how horribly organized I am. But where are you? You're in content. You're in conference material. Crystal user guide. So you've got a user guide that comes with your Sage system. It's available online. They don't put it in a box anymore, do they? Showing my age. But in that user guide, in this case, for version 18 in chapter 7, there's a whole section on Crystal reports. And it's very important you're just aware of this. So if you can't sleep tonight or over the weekend, it talks about those integration formulas. It talks about those. It talks about those additional DSNs and such with purchasing and inventory and service management as well as desktop. All right. So the things that I mentioned are in here, and you do have resource to that. You've got your consultant or your business partners that you work with. You've got the Sage, and I don't remember. We used to actually our group used to actually go into the call center and support Crystal reports. I don't even know if they support them anymore. That was a long time ago. But you've got potentially Sage to support this. And of course, if you need help, call us here at OnPoint. We can help you out with that. Happy to help. All right, let's move along here. So again, that's the user guide for your Sage 300 system, and it's available online. Is part of the download when you downloaded your software. All right, we got a little bit ahead. I just wanted to make sure that you had a screenshot of that DSN that we had modified. I wanted to point out it was 32-bit. It was the Timberline data source DSN. We told it where the data was, and then standard descriptions, first box checked. You do that, you're golden, and we are cooking with gas. So in terms of beginning Crystal and setting up ODBC, those are the big rocks. It's setting up that Timberline data source after you've installed or upgraded Timberline. Point being, if you install or upgrade, you have to go back through that. It's being aware of what it does, that you might have multiple DSNs depending on what products you use. And it's also the awareness that down the road, as you become more and more adept at Crystal, that optimization and report speed are a big part of your thinking and your planning. So with that, are there any questions, Lori?
There don't appear to be any questions, Mike.
Okay. All right, we'll keep on going here. Data dictionary. We've been asked so many times over the years, how do I know where my data's at, which tables I need, and within those tables, what the fields are? All right. We talk about this a lot at conferences and a lot in sessions, but this just isn't front and center. It's just not in our faces, and it should be. There's a data dictionary to the software, and that little guy exists or is accessible through Report Designer. Okay, so I am in Sage 300 CRE Report Designer. Now, if someone doesn't have Report Designer, no worries. Just please email us, and you'll have our contact information on these slides. Please email us or call us. We're happy to send this to you, okay? Because you really do need this. But the data dictionary is in Report Designer under Tools, and then Available Fields. What a concept! We work a lot with AP reports. They're good to talk about with beginning Crystal. So I'm going to look at the AP vendor table. Mike Savecki mentioned that Timberline, Sage 300 CRE Timberline, has called those records since version 1, and it's a table, but it's called a record up here. That's just the nomenclature they use. So when I hit OK, I have an option up here I'll talk about in a moment, but I'll print preview. And so for that vendor table, just pretend like we've got some white out here, and I'm scratching that out, and it's a table. We've got different fields within the table. So we've got a vendor field and a name and an address. So if you needed to do a report and they needed the vendor zip code on the report, you could come to available fields. You could come to the AP vendor record. I'll just use that word. And you could say, yep, that's where the zip code is. He's on this table. I can get the zip code from the AP vendor. And that's how you use this document for Crystal, for report designing. There are also, I'm gonna go back to the top here. As I scroll down, you see the vendor type here. When you set up vendors, there are definable types. When you did your implementation, you and your consultant sat down and talked about vendor types and the functions and the software based on your needs at a company. And you defined what these types were. But the nice part about available fields and about the data dictionary is it tells you on these pull downs what what the options are, so you've got those. So if it's a type 3, well, what in the world is that? Okay. For instance, default payment types, a 1 or a 2 could be check or electronic. All right. I'm going to pop out of here. I'm going to hit close. The other thing that it's got is something called information for ODBC reporting, which I don't know. Maybe it's me. It couldn't be more technically inaccurate, so I just have to get that off my chest. It's information for ODBC functionality. Reporting doesn't have a rat's thing to do with it. It's when you're going through ODBC, can it replace? It adds a column here. So when I check that box, it added a field. It added 2 things actually. It added a column saying, can you through ODBC replace this information? So what that means is, I don't know, say you were a specialty contractor and you just had tons and tons and tons and tons of jobs, and it was really just a lot. It was very labor intensive to go in there and close all those jobs, to go in and out of all those screens. Well, it might make sense to do something in an ODBC compatible program and make it more mass updatable. I guess that's a word, mass updatable, to change those job status fields. If they were ODBC replaceable, could you change them through ODBC? Then you could do that and have a good positive impact on your processes at your company. In other words, get your jobs closed a lot faster in your system. All right. Or if you had tons and tons of vendors and you wanted to do vendor maintenance in another piece of software, maybe like Excel or something, and then you run it through Microsoft Access, could you electronically update your vendor maintenance? Well, if it's replaceable, you could. So that's the perspective of that. The other thing that opened up was this this little creatable information. So what that tells us is that we can actually create vendors through ODBC. What that means is you can, in a program like Microsoft Access, you can do something called an append query to kind of picture. What I do is I stand up in front of the class and I hold my hands up and I say, picture a bunch of vendors, and here they are, and you want to append 10 more to the bottom. Well, that's what it does. You could add or append 10 more to the bottom because ODBC has been set to allow us to do that. So if someone says, hey, can I add jobs that way? We had too many jobs and it takes way too long. Can we electronically add jobs? Well, if you go into the job and it's ODBC creatable, well, yes, you can. So, okay, moving on down. That's the data dictionary. But the main purpose for beginning Crystal is the tables that are out there and the fields that are out there, so that as you're wanting to modify reports or maybe create new ones, you can look and see what's in there, during the planning process. Okay, we're going to modify an existing report, okay, which is really the big scope of this conversation. Presentation, I guess. Conversation is two-way. First rule is we're going to locate it and we're going to save it as another file. I don't know about you, but I don't want to mess up something that's already there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Crystal Reports, and we need to open up, go File, Open. We need to go open up that design that we want to modify. Okay. Well, that begs the question, what design, right? How do we know the file name? So again, you'll have this as part of the recorded session, but if you're taking notes, the way that you find the file, the way that you know where the design file is for the report, is you go to the module, in this case, accounts payable, and you go to report. Well, first of all, let's say that you had a report and maybe it was your custom AP report. All right, I got a little bit ahead of myself there. And this particular report shows you your open payables, and I thought of this last night. It was the biggest biggest thing I could come up with. It says, hey, I want to highlight anything that was, by the way, pretend like it's 2015, okay? Or in sample data. This report is highlighting any invoices that had a date of prior to 1/1/15. All right, just so that when the appropriate people are looking at it, it's very clear those invoices that are just getting way too old. Okay, and let's just say this was a report you had in your system. And you know what I noticed in the sample data? It was interesting. That when I looked at that, I thought, well, that's interesting. There seems to be a lot, but when I went down to the jobs, by the way, this sorts by job. Okay, so for no job, there were a number where it was over. We'll call that overhead. Okay. However, when we got down to job invoices, there were none. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? If I was well, it's actually part of my role at OnPoint. I'm paying vendors, I'm paying contractors, and paying overhead. I'm looking at aged payables, but am I really paying attention that we're staying current with the right vendors? And do I know conclusively that we're staying current with the right vendors? No, I don't. But if I had a little visual that said, hey, if it's getting out there beyond 30, 60, 90, whatever the day is, and I just had it right in front of me without any effort, that would be meaningful. And it was an interesting thing to me, but I noticed that it was only the overhead invoices here that were out there. So anyway, that was interesting. The power of the data, and there's always a story. But anyway, so this is our report. We want to modify him. Say this report has been being used for a long time. It shows vendor name, invoice, and let's say that the users want to add retention. Okay, that's what we want to do. So where's the report design? I want to open it in Crystal. The way that we figure that out is we're in AP. Now I'll go a little slow here. If you're taking notes, you go to Reports, and then you'll go to Report Manager. Reports, Report Manager. And then in Report Manager, and you'll see you can widen him out. This can get kind of hard in the eyes, okay? So I wanted to point out you can make that bigger. You'll find that report design, and in this case, I did him last night. So he's at the bottom of the list. Here's in the custom group, it's my Open AP. And I could either double click or I could click here on change. Okay. And I'm kind of lazy. If it's been put in a folder other than your default report folder on your installed drive, I will tend to just copy the path and then when I'm in Crystal, I'll just paste it there and I'll open it up. All right, I'm just kind of lazy that way. But if it's a report that is in your report folder, all you'll have is the design name. So you would have, AP Open Invoice Report, and you would then go to your default report folder and grab that file from there. So again, real brief. I went to the module where the report is. I went to Reports, Report Manager. I found them on the list. And this is where I found the file. Okay. Tips and tricks. If you're migrating servers, or if you're, if you want a list of all the reports and the information on those settings, you can go Report Manager, and from there you can go to File, and you can actually, well, I don't have a printer set up, but you can print or export that out to Excel from here. Or I guess I can print it from here, can I? Yeah, you can actually print that from here or dump it out to Excel and get a listing of your reports, the report file name, and the pathing on it. A lot of companies, we've been on the software since the early and mid 90s. I can't remember when I got in the mid 90s in version 1. So tons and tons of, you want to know what all your custom reports are. That's an easy way to dump to Excel if you want to manage that and clean some of that up. So anyway, first thing you do then is you find that report and you save as, and I'm going to save him on the desktop as AP report 2. I've just put a 2 in the back of him. Also, we recommend very strongly that you put a number 1, a special character in front of the design name. That is a consistent character. You know he's been modified right there, but he also now sorts to the top of the list. So over the years and years that you're on Sage, and I'm sure we can all, myself, I'm the worst offender, we can all attest that these doggone these design files are everywhere. If you put that special character in, at least they're at the top of the list in whatever folder that you have saved them in during that time frame. Okay. So I've got my design open. I've saved it as a different file name. All right. And for all practical purposes, this could be a canned report or one that had been modified or a previous custom one. It really doesn't matter. The process is still the same here. Okay. But in this case, I want to add a column. So to keep ourselves out of trouble, the next step that we do, and this is here, it's on the PowerPoint that you'll get, you locate it, you do a save as, you put a 1 in front of the file name. Next, we go to database, set database location, and verify. And so let's talk about that. Let's see, where are you? Okay, I'll go database. And if I go set database location, what that's giving me the opportunity to do is to reset the DSN that is driving this report, okay? Now, in this case, it's still Timberline data source, so I don't need to change that. But if you had custom reports and it used a different DSN, you had to do any kind of maintenance on pointing it to a different spot, this is where you can repoint it. The biggest place we see this is for those companies that are migrating a lot of their reports over to a SQL backend. So you're using Sage Replicator or the Antera tool. You're now mirroring your data in SQL. Well, you want to create a new DSN to point to that SQL backend, and you'd use set location just to point to that other data. The other thing you do then is you go verify database. What verify database does is it compares the table structure as it existed when the report was created to the table structure that exists in Sage now. So what happens is, as there are upgrades, Sage is going to add fields or modify fields, more so add. Well, the report design needs to see the same picture of that database when you're in there modifying it that it did when it was designed. And if it's different, it's going to squawk at you. So you always go verify database, and if the job table had changed, it'll tell you, hey, the job table's changed. I'm going to fix it, and it's not a big deal. You just have to go through that process. All right, let's move on down the road here. So we've started the process. We've popped it open. We've set location. We've verified. Now, tips and tricks. This one's huge, absolutely huge. This is a one-time pop on your computer. So if you change computers, you've got to do this again. All right. When I modify a report, I don't want to have to keep going back to Timberline to test it. I want to run it from Crystal to test it. All right. Now, there are integration formulas, and there are integration formulas that are looking for certain pieces of information in your data, though. Okay. So what we have to do is set your control file to point to your data. So I know he's going, what is he talking about? Well, it's actually not that bad. There's over on the right, and I'm going to cover this in more detail in a moment, there are some formulas under formula fields. And one of those is called TS data folder. All right. And this guy is going, all right, where is your, if I run it from Crystal in this case, where is your control file? Okay. Now, he flips. Remember when I was talking about we make a virtual copy of the DSN when you do certain things? Well, we make a virtual copy. I'm not with Timberline anymore. I'm not in the call center or anything like that. Sage makes a virtual copy of that DSN when you run this report. And he goes, I don't give a rat what's in here. I'm going to point this to the folder you were in when you ran the report. Did you ever notice how you can run your reports and be in different folders for those companies who do have different company data folders? And you're going, wait a minute, how does that work? How does it know? Well, here's how it knows. There's a integration formula in the Crystal report called TS data folder. And when you run it, it makes a virtual copy of your DSN and it places that value here. It points this report to the folder that you're in by manipulating the DSN and pointing that DSN, this report design to your data through that DSN. It's not rocket science, is it? It's that you go, oh my gosh, that's really not a complicated concept. So anyway, what we do then is so that we can run this from within Crystal, is all you have to do is set up a folder on your local hard drive, on your C drive, called TS data. Where are you? C, called TS data, and copy. Don't move. Copy a file called ts.ctl. He's your control file. He holds information about your company and the names and the settings, the things that a lot of these integration formulas are looking for. So one-time setup, go into Sage, go into Tools, File Tools, do copy, and then if you're anything like me, stare at your screen. Yep, I'm copying, I'm not moving. And add a file, and if you type in TS, you can then pick TSCTL. I'll pause for a minute in case anybody's taking notes. So you're going, in any module, you're going Tools, File Tools, Copy, and then you're going to copy ts.ctl, and then the destination is going to be C TS data. It's a one-time thing you have to do. When you do that, you will be able to run your report from within Crystal. You won't have to keep popping back and forth between Crystal and Timberline when you make those changes. Lori, it's 20 till. We can stop for a brief question if there are any at this point.
Yes, there's one question.
Okay.
Can more than one person have access to the report designer?
You know, that's an honor system thing. But yeah, it's a local install on your workstation typically. So it just depends on if you've installed it on your computer and somebody else's computer. Now that's what, you know, I've had my version for a number of years. I'm assuming Sage hasn't done anything to change that. But technically, yes, unless there's been some sort of license restriction made recently. Okay. Okay, anything else, Lori?
No, that was the only question.
Okay. All right, let's make a quick change to this puppy. Let's say we're going to add retention. The layout of Report Designer, I'm sorry, of Crystal, the layout of Crystal reports. On the left-hand side, we've got column sections. We've got section, not column sections. Boy, didn't that make a lot of sense? We've got section controls, okay? You know, in Report Designer, I was thinking so too far ahead of myself. You know, in Report Designer, you know, we've got sorts, groups, line spacing, print controls, page breaks. We've got things that are dependent on the sort, all right? Those things are controlled here in sections in Crystal, okay? When you right click and you go to Section Expert, you've got controls here that allow you to set certain things, okay? We'll talk more about this in a little bit, but we've got a section for sections, a column for sections. Then we've got the design pad, all right? This is where you're putting your fields, where you're making groupings, subtotals, totals, your report header, your name and all that, okay? And then over on the right, you know, this first time I ever saw this, I was like, whoa, you know, but it's you've got, number one, you've got your database fields. I have brought into this report 4 tables or records, as Sage would call them. I've brought in the vendor, I've brought in the invoice, the distribution, and the job. Okay. And if I want to grab, say, the job description, that's how I would do it. I would come into database fields, I would expand the job, and I would grab that description, and I would just pull him over, and I would put him on the report. And if I don't like what I did, I would hit there is an undo button. Hooray! So we gotta love the undo button, okay? So we've got database fields. We've also got formula fields. So if you're making formulas, they're stored here under this section. And when you've got a lot of them, obviously the syntax of the name can mean a lot, okay? But yeah, this is where your formula fields are. And then burn into memory that parameters are the equivalent of prompts in Report Designer. So if I wanted to be prompted for open invoices on a job, if I wanted to have a job prompt, I would make a parameter for that job. And what that would do is give me a prompt to put in a job number. And then pointing out the other popular one that would apply to a beginning Crystal class, these special fields here, if I expand that, if you want to include on your report the date the report was printed, the time the report was printed, if you want to include page numbers, those system maintained things are here under special fields. You don't want to forget those are here. They're really helpful. Okay. So we've got the sections, knowing that if you right click and go to Section Expert, there are controls behind the scenes here that and as you go to intermediate, you'll be working in these very regularly. Just burn into memory that right click, okay? The design pad, and then on the right side, database, formulas, parameters, special fields. Also, the tabs here can be kind of confusing. There are tabs to open up multiple report designs at once. I can't remember the Crystal version where this changed between 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. But anyway, so you've got multiple tabs, but then for a report, you've got a design tab. And then when you print preview, you've got that preview tab. And then if you're taking notes, one more thing that just burn this into memory. It's a gotcha. We got this in the call center all the time. People would say, why are my prompts not working? Why are my parameters not working? And the reason is that when Crystal installs, saving your data with your report is checked by default. And because the data is saved with the report, the system's going, well, I already have data. I don't have to prompt you for a prompt. So you can change that under File Options. Where are you? File Options. reporting, you can say, wait a minute, don't save data with report. When I start new designs, don't do that anymore. So that was under File Options, the Reporting tab. That's the first thing you'll do is uncheck Save Data with Report. The only practical reason you'd ever want to do that is if you're sending that report to somebody to troubleshoot something for you. They'd say, send it with the data for me so I can work with it. Otherwise, you want it to refresh whenever it runs. Okay, so we're going to add our retention here. I'm going to go to the design pad. You can see we've got the report header, which is going to have information that's going to print once per report. We've got the page header, has information that's going to print once per page. And then we have group headers, and these are defined. In this case, this group header has information that's going to print once per group. In this case, I've grouped on the job. So every time we come to a new job, this is going to print. All right. And then the details are just those. It's the invoice details. And then we have a group footer, which will print every time we come to the end of the job, which are job totals, and then at the end of the report. All right. And so what we're going to do then is we're going to add retention. And for everybody that knows and loves the data, we're going to make a formula that says go out and grab the retention that was held on the invoice and subtract from it any retention that's been paid, so I can get to my retention balance. Okay. And did I know that my first day on Timberline? Heck, on Sage 300, heck no. You just, you learn those things over time, but that's the way the database works in those fields. So I'm going to go to the formula field. I'm going to say make a new formula, and I'm going to call it open retention. All right, and I'm grabbing my data, in this case, off of the AP distribution. And I'm doing it because we're grabbing it specific to a job. Kind of think of the screen where you enter in the job and all that on a accounts payable invoice entry screen. It's down there at the distribution. That's where all this granular stuff is. So I'm grabbing the distribution table. It's not a record, it's a table. I'm not going to let that go. And what I'm interested in is I passed it. Where are you? Retainage held. So I'm going to double click retainage held, and you can see it's the APM master distribution retainage held. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to put a minus sign and enter again. And then I'm going to double click retainage paid. Okay. Other tips and tricks, and this is what we do at OnPoint, having done so many crystal reports for so many clients, and then when there's maintenance needed or changes needed, we need to document what we do, not just what we did, but why. That'll help you. So, there's something called a remark, 2 forward slashes. You'll notice if it's 1, it's still, I don't know if you can tell, it's black. When I hit 2, I don't know if you can tell, it goes to green. And I'm going to say calculate open AP retainage. Okay, it's just a remark. It's not doing anything other than documenting what this formula is about to do. And I also, we have a standard. We break up the syntax. We have a very, very specific way of the syntax layout so that it can actually be followed by other people as well. They could all string together if I wanted to. It's just habits I got into, and that saves your rear end over time. So tips and tricks, but retainage held minus retainage paid. That little checker here, I can check the syntax here, and if I had an error, it would tell me. Say, for instance, I forgot one of those slashes, and I check my syntax. It's going to go, wait a minute. I'm thinking you've got a calculation or a syntax and something going here, and it doesn't make sense. So that's the purpose of that. So I'll put that back, and I'll check it. He's happy. And now I'll save and close. So,
Excuse me, Mike, I just wanted to let you know that we have 10 minutes left.
okay, yeah, thank you, Lori. So I'm going to add open retainage to my detail section. And he's looking pretty good, but look at the font size. He's different. And you're going to run into this. I did this on purpose, by the way. I actually made a mistake and I did it on purpose this time. You're going to run into this all the time. The report was designed in Courier New 12, but your default is at Arial 10. You're going to get this constantly. The easiest way to deal with that is to go ahead and finish it out. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to tell it that I want to insert summaries, which basically means give me subtotals and totals and give me those on all groups. So watch what happens right here when I hit OK. It's just going to ratchet out those totals for me, but they're still, the font size is horrible, right? I guess I need to go to a job. I can't send that out, So the easiest way to deal with that is to highlight the field that you want it to be like Mike, and not me, but and right click and go Format Painter and just hit it like that, and just go right down. And you've got the same thing in Excel and all that to do the same type. But I have found over the years, this is a lot faster than trying to go into my default fonts and make a match. And then on the next report, same thing. Then if I haven't put you to sleep yet, a nice tip and trick on your header here, if I right click and I go Format Painter and I hit him, okay, he's looking okay. I've got to go in there and put a carriage return then between open and retention. And then he's still not the size of the other ones. And if I start dragging him around, he's going to be very inconsistent, all right? And one of our crystal report writers once said to me that she thought she spends 50% of her time just with cosmetics, and on a lot of reports you do. So these things can go a long way. A fast and easy way to handle this is hold down your control key and highlight the field that is the destination, and then the source, what you want it to be like. Right click on the source. Now in this case, I'm going to say size, and I'm going to say same height. All right, we're close. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to say align the tops. Now that wasn't too bad, was it? I mean, if I started mucking around with manually changing things, I just get so inconsistent and things get out of whack. And before you know it, I've got 10 minutes trying to make it look the same as what's next to it. I double clicked open, told it to not underscore. Now I'm going to preview it, and I've got my retention now. Okay. So I'm throwing out tips and tricks as we go here of the things that just save countless hours over different report designs. So I've saved my design as version 2 on my desktop, and to add them to my system, what I can do is what we will typically do is, rather than change what's here, we'll add it and say test this first. So I'm just gonna, good work habits, okay? I'm gonna add a new design, and I'm gonna say AP open invoice with retainage, okay? And I'm just gonna say test. All right, good work habits. He's a crystal design, and for the file name, I know that he's on my desktop as version 2. Hit OK. And we'll give him a quick test. Preview. And there's our open retention. I'm going to hit my job. Yeah, that's looking like it should. Yes, sample data. I'm not even going to question that. Burn into memory too. The best thing you can do for yourself to avoid getting egg on your face is when you do any of these changes, compare it to canned reports. We do it every time. To make a change, design something you're going to do, compare it to a canned report, just to do the first smell test that you're getting what you expect. So again, the way I added that was I went to, in the module, I went to reports, and in this case, I wanted to add it to a test folder. So I went to new, and then within that, when I got to new, I typed in the report name and the menu group. If you want it within an existing menu group, you can hit list and see those. And then I went out to the report. Also, don't forget, if you do add it, if you add it as a new report, don't forget to have security changed so that whoever needs it can get to it. You want to change your Sage security. All right, down the home stretch. Let's see, we've modified that. We went through the reporting tabs, the preview, the design, the sections, the field explorer on the right. Upgrading. There's two words that are used around these reports. One is upgrade, one is verify. When you install new software or have upgrades, upgrading reports applied to a version upgrade a number of years ago where some report syntax changed. Trying to remember what in the world it was. There was some report syntax, some shared variables, just some report syntax changed, and for a variety of reasons, it had to be done a different way. We'll just leave it at that. So Upgrade Reports flipped it to the new way. That's all it did. It said, hey, if you've got some shared variables out there and they're done a certain way, flip it to the new way. And there was about 3 or 4 different types of formulas that had to be done. And so Timberline tried to make it, Sage 300 tried to make it easy on everybody, and that's what the upgrade process did. Verify is something totally different. Verify is, there was an upgrade that came out and the database changed, and it should change. That means that the publisher is being progressive. They're adding new features. They're listening to you, the customer. And with progressiveness comes change, right? The database changed. It should. They're doing new and inventive stuff. So if you've got custom reports out there, you may need to verify them to take a picture of that new database on your upgrades. When they install, any canned reports will come already verified, so you don't have to worry about any canned reports in your system. It just refers to the custom ones. So recapping here, and I know I've been talking fast. I feel like I've just been screaming at you here for an hour, but we've set up ODBC. We've accessed the data dictionary, shown you that. We modified a report design, added it to the menu, and covered that upgrade reports. We get that question a lot. If you're new to Crystal, it's definitely a crawl, walk, run. I would dare to say, I don't know if it's hundreds, but it's over 100. I've taught between the 25 years at Timberline User Group and Sage Insights and Sage Summit. And we used to have consultants conferences. I taught Crystal at all of those, and there was and this is where I'm going with this. I taught beginning, and I taught intermediate, and I taught advanced, and I taught Crystal for purchasing, Crystal for service management, Crystal for billing invoices. Where I'm going with this is, it's a process, and it's a use. Don't you got to use it or you lose it. So so what I would do, depending on where you are on that education path, you want to take where you are and just practice to reinforce the knowledge you have. Take baby steps. Don't get frustrated. What we have found to be really effective over the years is get it in your hands as quickly as we can, and then when you need help, like get a punch list and call us. We have found that to be the best way for you to take ownership and be the best resource at your company, kind of a go-to person, if that is indeed your goal. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. That's everything that I had. I really hope this is helpful. This was a one-day course, is a one-day course, and we smushed it in, trying to help you now, like Barclay was saying. So please call us, contact us if we can help you. We're here to help. But otherwise, everybody have a great weekend. Barclay, it is 5 o'clock. Do you believe that? I've got on time. I'll hand it off to you, Barclay.
Mike, we do have one question.
Okay.
Is report designer data limited to the same permissions set in Sage?
Is report designer data limited to the same permissions in Sage? There are, as Crystal. I want to think about what I'm saying here. There is record security in Sage for a few of the records, job, bank accounts, GL accounts that most don't have turned on. However, there is very, very specific ODBC read/write security in Sage. I want to think about what I'm saying here to make sure I'm accurate. This is a big question. I want to be. I'm thinking of okay, the worst case. Do you want to turn somebody loose on reports and they're doing payroll reports? I'll email that. Okay. I do not want to. I have a couple things I want to think about. I don't want to speculate on that and give the wrong answer. I'll email that one out. I'll figure out the right answer and email that one out.
Okay.
Were there any other questions?
No, sir, that was the last one.
Okay. Well, appreciate everybody being here late in the day. I'm really proud of our team having put this together as fast as we did. This was everybody did what it took here to get this to you. I hope the results showed and it's been of value to you. We'll be really interested in your feedback, and most importantly, so we can improve and do subject matter that you want to see the next time and the next time. So your feedback will be really important to us so that we can do it better and get the right content to you. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend. Barclay, I'll hand it to you.
Okay, like Mike said, just thank you for being here again and for spending time with us over the last couple of days. Hopefully you got a lot out of it, and have a great Friday afternoon. Again, we do appreciate your feedback, and just to keep up to date on what we are doing next, you can like us on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Have a good afternoon and a good weekend, everybody.